And we are live. I'm moving the desk down a little bit. Happy Thursday. Good morning. I know it's crazy. I'm sorry for the delay. I was on FaceTime with my new niece. I know I'm not really with my new niece, but you know what I mean. She's cute. But then I looked at the time, I was like, oh my God, I gotta go. The cuteness just had me wrapped up and lost in what time it was. But speaking of new, two new things happening. Number one, I'm moving from Fridays to Thursdays. Why? If you haven't yet, on Fridays, we have been going head to head live on YouTube. Don't miss out tomorrow. We've got Savannah, Lauren, and Cash going head to head in another part of our Tri-Star workout series. You don't want to miss this one because it's going to be really, really good. Three incredible athletes, fast athletes, three athletes that can push themselves to that pain cave. So I'm glad it's not me. And then I'm currently starting a new series. I don't know if you read underneath the title of my podcast today, but I'm starting a new series and we're going to go through everything we're starting today with what exactly is protein. And from there, we're going to move into meal prep, how to, eat enough protein based on your macros, XYZ. So today is going to be a little bit more of like, you can look at this podcast as like an outline document. Let's say that. Let's look at it like an outline document, right? So this is going to set the tone for the next probably like 3 or 4 weeks of this series, so we can really reap the benefits of eating enough protein and getting our nutrition right. Let's go. All right. So we're going to go ahead. I want to kick this off today. I would love for those of you watching, I want you to comment in the comments below. I would love for you to let me know, what is your favorite kind of protein? Right? There's all kinds, and I'm not just sticking with, the basic, beef, chicken, fish, whatever. You can do that, of course. We all know I'm beefy, so you already know my favorite's going to be steak. But what is your favorite? I know some people love cottage cheese. They love eggs, maybe in protein bars. What is it that really gets you going when you think about protein? So in the comments, comment below, what's your favorite way to get your protein, or what is just your favorite type of protein to eat? All right, so let's get into it today, guys. And what exactly is protein, right? What is it? Why is it so crucial? Then there's the different types, how it affects men and women differently. Whether you are an athlete, maybe you're just starting your fitness journey, understanding protein is the key. It's going to help you unlock your performance, even just your livelihood, and really take that to the next level. So protein is a macronutrient made up of building blocks called amino acids. Think of amino acids as individual bricks that construct the buildings of our body: muscles, skin, enzymes, hormones, just to name a few, right? So our bodies need protein to repair tissue, build new muscle, and support overall health. See, now this happens a lot of times. Like, people come in and they'll start one-on-one coaching with me. And we sit down and I'm like, all right, well, tell me what your day looks like, because they're wondering why they're not making any progress, especially in the gym. So they're like, well, I eat these 3 meals a day. I have eggs for breakfast. I have a grilled chicken salad for lunch. And then for dinner, I might have some piece of beef or some salmon with some veggies. And that's not bad. That's actually great. I love that. However, when you actually break it down and look at the macros that you are eating, you're not eating enough protein. That's why you're not making the gains that you're looking for. That's why you're always sore. That's why you tend to get sick a little more often than you would like. So the results that you're looking for are going to come from you eating enough protein, Carbs and fat, we'll get to those another day. But like I said, so if I were to break it down, if you ate 3 eggs, they each contain about 5 grams of protein apiece. Okay, that's 15 grams of protein. Great. All right. Then you have 4 ounces of chicken at lunch. That's like 23, 24 grams of protein. Okay, so 15 plus 24. Okay, we're at 39 grams. And then say you have a piece of salmon for dinner, and that's another like 25 grams. Okay, so you had 39. Now you've got 25. So now you're at 54. Okay, hopefully that quick math was good. But that's all you've had for the day. So what you're telling me is that you worked all day, you worked out for an hour, and then you only ate 54 grams of protein. How do you expect to lose fat, gain muscle, sleep well, support your hormones, and support your bodily functions if you're not eating enough? And especially if you're an athlete, protein isn't just about muscle. It's about energy, recovery, keeping your body functioning at its best. Without enough protein, your muscles can't repair properly after an intense workout. And then your immune system may weaken. I'm telling you, these are all scientific facts, not just, blowing smoke up your butt. I'm speaking the truth here. And I'm speaking also from personal experience. One of my favorite things is that when I start working with a client, and we, mainly in the beginning, I'm like, all right, this is our goal, because you can't just jump into something and have too many things to do. It can get overwhelming. But the first and foremost biggest thing that I always do with my clients is that we will always focus on eating more protein. All right, we spend about 2 weeks solely focusing on eating more protein, and the changes that happen are crazy. They're like, oh my gosh, I've already lost 5 or 8 pounds. Oh, that's great. They're like, oh, I'm sleeping better. Oh, I'm, able to make it 4 days a week instead of 3 days or 2 days a week. The changes are very noticeable, all right? Because protein is the key building block of the body, all right? So, like I said, first, the health benefits of protein are as follows. Okay, so follow me along. If you have a pen, take it out. Let's get into it. First, it promotes muscle growth and repair, right? So, say you had a rough training session. Your muscles, they sustain these tiny stairs. The protein helps rebuild and strengthen those muscles, making you stronger over time. Right? So how can you expect to have muscle growth if you're not eating enough protein? Right? Second, protein is a key source of energy, especially during prolonged activities where carb storage is low. Right? Like I said, we're not talking about carbs yet. We're not on that. We're focusing on protein. You need it for energy. And then third, it supports your immune system by producing antibodies and enzymes that keep you healthy. Right? So if you're someone who however it is that you get your protein, it might be tofu, it could be steak, it could be chicken, it could be beef, it could be eggs, it could be anything. You need to be eating 0.8 to 1.2 grams per body weight, right? So that means, so when I am right now, I'm currently in a gaining phase. I'm getting ready for a triathlon in September. Right now, I weigh 160 pounds. I'm trying to gain, so I'm eating 160 grams of protein because I also have my carbs and my fat. So my calories all together are 2,200 right now for me to be gaining because I was in a deficit. I wanted to lean out, and then I'm moving back up to what I used to do because there was a time period where I was eating 200 grams of protein and I was crushing 3,400 calories a day. Right? Everything is specific to what you're doing, right? And the type of, I would say, your body type as well. Because if I do have someone whose main and first goal is to lose 50 pounds, well, I'm not going to have them eating 200 grams of protein, right? They're going to be in a deficit. So it's going to look different for them as opposed to a client I have that wants to gain more muscle mass. So they're eating more protein, right? So it has to be individualized. calories. All right? Because also a high protein diet can help with weight management because it promotes being satisfied. You feel fuller longer, so it controls your appetite. All right? And just lastly, maintaining adequate protein intake is linked to longevity and overall health. And this is so crucial for athletes who are pushing their bodies regularly. Okay, because this is where a lot of athletes are making the mistake. You're coming to the gym in the morning completely fasted, nothing wrong with that. Then you're leaving and going home, and then you're going straight to work, and then you're not eating anything till noon. We're doing it wrong. We need to be refueling ourselves after our workout. Now, am I a fan of fasted workouts? Depends where you are in your journey. But overall, no. All right? Eat a banana, eat an apple before you work out. Eat some bread with peanut butter. Great. Support the glycogen in your body. Get ready for a workout. But the last thing you want to do is not eat after you just had a hard workout. Okay? You need to be eating within an hour window of when you worked out. You want to make substantial gains, you need to eat after your workout. You want to lose body fat, you need to eat after your workout. Right? So stop making yourself sore and stop making your recovery bad and stop making yourself sick because you're not eating enough protein to support your body. Now, you're probably asking yourself, like, oh, what do you mean, Caitlin, supporting your body? Let me define that for you. All right? We have a lot of bodily functions. All right? We've got our thyroid, our heart, our intestines. All right? We're constantly working in here. Okay? And up here. We are constantly working. So there is a minimum amount of protein, carbs, and fat, and especially protein, that you need to be eating to support your bodily functions. Okay, you need enough protein for the lining of your stomach, the muscles around your organs, for your heart pumping, for your thyroid working to produce your hormones, for your brain. You need it. And when you don't have it, that's when it's not working properly. Okay, because here's what's going to happen. You're trying to make gains. But how can you make gains and create more muscle mass if you're not eating enough protein just for your daily basic bodily functions? You have to ask yourself that. How am I supposed to gain muscle mass and burn body fat if I'm not supporting my main functions first? So there's a minimum for those, and then the excess goes to what it is you're working towards. All right? So I'm going to go over these benefits again. All right? Why is protein so important? First, it promotes muscle growth and repair. Second, it is a key source of energy, especially if you are someone who is working out. Third, it supports your immune system by producing antibodies and enzymes that keep you healthy. Fourth, a high protein diet keeps you satisfied and helps control appetite. And lastly, maintaining adequate protein intake is linked to longevity and overall health. Right? Now, we're getting into the types of protein. I kind of touched on that a little bit before. Types of protein. Right? These are the different ones that you can include in your diet. So, first, we have complete proteins. Complete proteins contain all 9 essential amino acids the body can't produce on its own. Examples include animal products like chicken, beef, fish, eggs, and dairy. Right? Some plant sources like soy and quinoa are also complete. Right? Then you have incomplete proteins. Right? They lack 1 or more essential amino acids. So these are going to be your more plant-based proteins. So beans, lentils, and grains, they fall into this category. Right? Combining different plant sources throughout the day can help ensure you're getting all these essential amino acids. Then there are protein supplements, whey, casein, plant-based powders like pea or rice. Right? These are convenient options for something when you need it to be quick, high quality, especially post-workout. My 5 a.m. class, they finish working out, they all sit down and drink a protein shake. I'll have to post a picture of it in the comments below because it's cute. It's cute. All right, so we have the reasons and the benefits of proteins. We have our types of proteins. One more time, complete proteins. They contain all 9 essential amino acids, and you get them from animal products, right? Then we have incomplete proteins, right? They lack one or more essential amino acids, so it's going to be more plant-based. And then protein supplements, all right? Whey, casein, and protein powders. All right, so we're breaking this down further. All right, so you've kind of got to ask yourself, what do you eat more of? Are you getting all of your essential amino acids? Are you plant-based? How are you substituting for that? These are important questions that you need to be asking. So now when it comes to protein needs are different per person, especially for men and women, right? Are men and women's protein needs the same? Not exactly, all right? Especially, is it different for athletes and then sedentary individuals? Yes. Athletes and people who work out, all right, whether you're a professional athlete, you like to work out for fun, or you're like us, competitive athletes, you do require more protein than people who aren't working out, right? So for men, remember I gave you these numbers earlier, for men, the typical recommendation ranges from 1.2 to 2. So we've gone higher than the number that I stated earlier, right? And that's a fact, right? These are facts that I got off the internet, all right? So 1.2 to 2.0 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, depending on activity level and training intensity, right? It's also because men are fueled by testosterone, right? So it's different than women, all right? So those women needs are similar, but can vary based on age, activity, whether they're pregnant, breastfeeding, postpartum. And then female athletes are going to need slightly more protein because you're going to need it for recovery and hormonal health. Take it from someone who is on hormone therapy and is an athlete, okay? I do take testosterone. Everybody knows that, right? And I take it because I have hormonal issues, right? And one thing that my doctor tells me is that I have to be eating enough protein to support my hormones, especially as a woman, all right? So men are eating more protein. Women are eating just a little less. They're that 0.8 to 1.2. However, whether man or woman, athletes do require more protein, right? Whether you're male or female, more protein, right? So how can you make sure you're getting enough protein? Because I brought up the case earlier about normally people are eating 3 meals a day. They're having eggs for breakfast, some grilled chicken for lunch, and some salmon for dinner. And they're like, well, I thought I was eating enough. That's honestly the most normal and typical reaction that I get from people. They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I wasn't eating too much, right? So what happens now is we get into macros and meal prep, right? And these are things that I'm going to talk further. They need to be talked about in their own podcast, right? Like I said, this is just a basic outline of everything that we're going to be talking about the next 4 weeks. So if you've noticed, right, we talked about the benefits of protein, okay? We talked about the benefits first, and we'll dive a little deeper into that and the types of protein. And then we talked about men and women's needs. You kind of see where I'm going with this because we're going to break out into different episodes per my little outline, right? And so then, how do we get enough? And this one is probably going to be my most important podcast because I honestly think this is the hardest part, right? This is the hardest part because what do you mean I have to eat more? And this is probably the most controversial of all of the points. And I say that because, there are, there's food insecurity. There's, issues around food. Like there's a lot, we're told, We need to be skinny. We need to be big. We need to eat more. We need to eat less. There's just so much around eating enough just in general, right? And like I said, this is a very individualized per person thing, right? But the easiest way to do that is start incorporating a source of protein in every meal and snack. All right. So that means if at lunch you typically only eat 4 ounces, increase it to 6 or 8, double it. That's probably the easiest one that I get. Now, if you're someone like me, I eat multiple meals throughout the day. Also, I don't eat actual breakfast for breakfast. And, people make fun of me for that. They're like, Caitlin, what are you eating for breakfast? And I say beef and rice. It's true. It's true. I do. I was actually talking to Coach Savannah the other morning, and I was like, she's like, yeah, I had beef and rice for breakfast. I was like, girl, me too. So there comes a point, depending on what your goals are, depending what your lifestyle is, or how it works for you, maybe breakfast foods, because they do contain the least amount of protein, breakfast foods do, that you switch that around. Or you can have 2 breakfasts. I have one of my clients on right now. I think Nick, he's still on here. And when I make their macros and their food, they eat 2 breakfasts. Except when they were in a deficit, they weren't. But they usually eat 2 breakfasts. Or if they have 1 breakfast, they'll have an additional meal throughout the day. I break it down completely for them. I give them all of their macros, all of their meals. I mix and match their meals so they know exactly what to eat, when to eat it, and how to eat it. So there are ways to go about eating 150 grams of protein. You just have to know exactly how to do that. All right? Because timing matters. All right? Like I said, consuming protein within 30 minutes to an hour after training accelerates muscle activity. Oh, hi, Ned. I knew you were still there. All right? So try doubling your protein. And like I said, we're going to have a whole podcast strictly on meal prep. I'm even going to take you guys along with me to the store, and I'm going to show you how to meal prep for the week I'm going to do 2 different ones. I'm going to go $50 and $100 because remember, food insecurity is real. And I want to be able to give the best tips and advice for the people who are looking for it and the people who need it. All right? So double your protein is the easiest way to start. Change what you have for breakfast. Add more protein in for snacks. Maybe it's a beef jerky stick. Maybe you have a protein shake, you weren't drinking one before. There are ways to go about this. But if you're unsure on how to eat enough protein, or you're just unsure about nutrition in general, hit me up. My handle on Instagram is @coach__beefy. You can hit me up in these comments. You can email me, eastatlanta@ox.fit. You can also reach out to any of our other coaches, Sav at ox.fit, Lauren at ox.fit, and at ox.fit as well. I can't wait to keep going in this series because this is probably one of my favorite things to talk about, which is eating and eating enough and eating to fuel the body and eating for your hormones. So we are going to dive deep into what exactly protein is and what it does for the body. And listen, don't fall for the myths. Eating excessive protein does not automatically make you more muscular or stronger. It's not automatic, okay? It comes with time. It comes with changing macros. It comes with experience. It comes with working with a coach who knows exactly what they're doing. All right? Balance is key. Thanks for tuning in today, you guys. I will see you next Thursday where we will be talking about the difference of men and women in protein.